When a woman walks out, you expect pain. What you don't expect is silence. The kind that seeps into the walls. That makes every clock tick sound like a question you'll never get to ask. It was a wet Thursday night when Daniel Rhodes pulled into the driveway. The street lamps flickered through the rain, casting long reflections across the hood of his truck. He'd worked late again, trying to outrun the quiet that had been building inside his house for weeks. But tonight, something felt different. Still, too still. He stepped inside. The warmth he expected wasn't there. Just the faint trace of her perfume lavender, and something sharp underneath fading into the air like a memory dissolving. The kitchen light hummed low. 2 mugs sat on the counter from that morning, hers still half full. A lipstick mark curling along the rim. He called out once. Softly. Then again. Louder. No answer. The hallway smelled like rain and emptiness. Their bedroom door was open. Closet doors too. Half the hangers were bare, swinging lightly from the draft. Her suitcase, the one he'd given her on their anniversary, was gone. Drawers half closed. The bed made too neatly, like a room staged for someone else to see. On the counter lay a single note, torn from the back of her journal. Don't call me. I need time to find myself. Daniel stood there for a long time, eyes tracing every curve of the handwriting he knew by heart. It looked rushed, almost careless, like the words weren't meant for him at all. But for her own justification, he sat down at the kitchen table, the clock ticking loud in the corner. The mug was cold. He turned it slowly in his hand, watching the swirl of old coffee cling to the sides like it didn't want to let go either. He thought of the past few weeks, how she'd stopped finishing her sentences, how she'd smiled without her eyes, how she'd said "I'm tired" in ways that had nothing to do with sleep. At first, he'd told himself it was just stress. Everyone drifts now and then. But the truth had been in front of him the whole time, in the way she pulled away when he reached for her, in the way she looked past him when they talked. The rain outside thickened, soft against the windows, and Daniel felt something inside him go still. He reached for his phone, scrolled to her name, pressed call. 1 ring, 2, then her voice. Recorded and calm. Don't disturb me with calls. Daniel, I'm on a journey to find myself. A pause. Then, the line went dead. He tried again. But the silence came quicker this time. Voicemail. Straight away. As if the universe itself was done speaking, he set the phone down, stared at the reflection of the kitchen light in the window. Outside, the rain turned silver under the street lamp. He whispered, almost to himself. You said forever. Claire. Where'd forever go? No one answered. Just the slow rhythm of rain against glass. Hours passed. He didn't move. Didn't eat. Didn't turn on the TV. By the time dawn broke pale through the blinds, Daniel still hadn't slept. The note sat where he'd left it. The ink smudged by a drop of something, maybe rain, maybe regret. He made coffee he wouldn't drink. The machine hissed and clicked like it was pretending someone still cared enough to start the day. And in that still kitchen, with the sound of rain easing into silence, Daniel finally understood. She didn't just leave. She erased herself like she was never here. The days that followed felt like static. Everything looked the same. But nothing sounded right. The rhythm of life had a gap in it. A silence shaped like her. Daniel went to work. Answered calls. Paid bills. All on autopilot. But every night, when the house went quiet, he could hear it, the hum of questions with no answers. Where she went, why she left, and whether he'd ever meant anything real to her, or just filled the space between dreams she hadn't lived yet. By the 3rd night, the not knowing became heavier than the heartbreak. That's when he found the name. Michael Hayes, Private Investigations. Denver. He didn't remember where he'd first heard it. Only that someone once said Hayes was the kind of man who found truth you didn't want to see. And that was exactly what Daniel needed. When the call connected, Hayes's voice came through gravelly, unimpressed, like he'd already solved the mystery but was too tired to care. "Hayes. Daniel Rhodes," he said quietly. "I need help. My wife disappeared." There was a pause. Disappeared. Or left. Daniel hesitated. "She left. But she didn't tell me where. It's been 4 days." The investigator's tone stayed flat. "Send me what you've got, her photo. Any recent bank activity. I'll get back to you. How long will it take depends what you want." Hayes said, "Truth or comfort?" Daniel exhaled. "Truth." "Then give me 3 days." 3 days. It sounded manageable until you lived every hour of it. He filled the silence with work. Long drives. The same 3 songs looping in the truck. He told no one. People asked where Claire was. He said visiting friends. Even lies sound polite when they're protecting what's left of your pride. By the morning of the 4th day, the phone finally rang. Michael Hayes. The voice on the other end was low. "Steady. I got what you asked for. Rhodes. You'd better come down." Daniel didn't ask what it was. He already knew it wouldn't be good. There was a tone men use when they've seen too much. Hayes had it. When Daniel arrived, Hayes didn't waste words. He just slid a folder across the desk. The paper smelled faintly of cigarettes and rain. "Everything you wanted's in there." Daniel opened it slowly. The first photo made his stomach tighten. Claire on a balcony overlooking the ocean. Sun in her hair. Eyes half closed, like she was finally at peace. But she wasn't alone. A man stood behind her, his hand around her waist. Another photo, the 2 of them laughing over street food. Her head resting on his shoulder. Then one more, her arm looped through his. Both walking through a crowded night market like lovers in a film. And finally, a video still. Her kissing him. Eyes closed. Fingers tangled in his shirt. The kind of kiss that once belonged to Daniel. Hayes leaned back, watching quietly. "She's been in Santa Monica since Saturday. The guy's name is Brandon Cole. Works in real estate. Divorced. No kids." Daniel said nothing. His fingers tightened around the edge of a photo until it bent slightly. Hayes reached for his coffee. Voice still casual. "She's safe. If that's what you needed to know." Safe. That word used to mean something. Now it felt like a punchline. Daniel stared at the images again, each one cutting a little deeper. But cleaner. Like surgery, without anesthesia. He didn't cry. Didn't shout. Just looked at the proof that love could vanish faster than a storm clearing over the mountains. After a long moment, he closed the folder carefully. That act, the slow closing of a truth too sharp to touch, felt heavier than the moment she left. He slipped the photos back inside, straightened the pages, and stood up. Hayes didn't offer sympathy, and Daniel didn't need it. They were both men who understood that sometimes pain doesn't demand witnesses. "I'll send you the invoice," Hayes said. Daniel nodded once. "You'll get it." Outside, the world looked too normal. Cars passed. People laughed into phones. The sky stretched wide and careless. Like it didn't just break someone in half. He sat in his truck for a long minute, staring at the folder on the passenger seat. The woman inside those pictures looked like his wife. But she wasn't. The woman he loved had been replaced by someone who smiled for another man's camera. Someone who'd chosen sunshine over loyalty. Thrill over truth, Daniel whispered to no one. "I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the truth no matter how much it hurt." And it did hurt. In a quiet, surgical way. Because now, there was no doubt. The mystery was over. The illusion was gone. And just like that, the love of his life had turned into a stranger on someone else's vacation. The morning after he saw the photos, Daniel woke before the sun. The air was heavy with that hollow kind of quiet that comes after a storm, not peace. Just absence. He sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the space where her pillow used to be. It still held the faint shape of her head. The ghost of a life that had already moved on. He thought about calling her. He even picked up the phone once, thumb hovering over her name. But what could he say? There's no sentence that rebuilds trust when you've already buried it. So instead, he opened his laptop, searched through old emails until he found the name of the man who had handled their paperwork 3 years ago. Evan Porter. Attorney at law. A man who dealt not in emotion, but in closure. By mid-morning, Daniel sat across from him. The office smelled of coffee, paper, and quiet judgment. Evan looked up from the file, silver hair catching the light. Expression neutral, but not unkind. "Daniel," he said, voice level. "I saw your email. You're sure about this?" Daniel nodded once. "I'm done loving people who need to disappear to find themselves." Evan's pen stopped moving. He looked at Daniel, the kind of look men share when both of them understand that something broke quietly long before it shattered. Without another word, he pulled a folder from the cabinet, the prenuptial agreement. The one Claire had once waved off as just paperwork. She'd said it with that teasing smile. The one that used to make him forget logic. He'd signed it then. Not because he didn't trust her, but because he trusted her completely. Now, that same trust was the rope he used to climb out of the wreckage. Evan laid the document flat, the pages crisp and final. "Clause 7b," he said softly. "Infidelity voids all claims to marital assets. You both signed it." He glanced up. "You've confirmed evidence." Daniel's answer was steady. "I have everything. Photos. Dates. Hotel bookings. It's all real." Evan nodded. "Then, this will be straightforward." He slid another document across the desk, the divorce petition. A simple form. Black ink on white paper. It didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't bleed. It just ended things. Daniel read it carefully, line by line, as if each word were a nail closing a coffin on what used to be love. Then he picked up the pen. For a moment, his hand paused. He thought of her laughter, the way she'd dance barefoot in the kitchen on Sunday mornings, the smell of her hair when she leaned in to kiss him goodbye. The memories flickered bright, cruel, and useless. He signed. A single motion, smooth and deliberate. And just like that, the marriage existed only on paper, waiting for the stamp that would make it disappear for good. Evan gathered the forms and clipped them neatly together. "I'll file this by tomorrow morning," he said. "You'll be notified once it's finalized." Daniel nodded, standing slowly. "Thank you." "Evan, don't thank me," the lawyer said. "Just don't go back." Daniel gave a faint smile. "I won't." That afternoon, Daniel drove straight to the bank, the same building where he and Claire had opened their first joint account. He remembered how she'd laughed when they picked out their debit cards, hers gold, his silver. "Guess that makes me the rich one," she'd joked. He'd smiled back, not knowing that someday those words would echo like prophecy. Now he stood across from a teller who didn't know his story. She smiled politely, typing his name into the system. "How can I help you today?" "Mr. Rhodes, I need to remove an authorized user." The words felt sharp, surgical. He handed over his ID, signed, where she pointed, and within minutes, her name vanished from every account. No arguments. No goodbyes. Just deletion. As he left, he folded the receipt and slipped it into his jacket pocket. For the first time in weeks, his chest felt lighter. That evening, he walked into the garage. Claire's car sat there, gleaming under the light, spotless, soulless. She'd left it behind without a word. The keys still hanging on the hook. He placed an ad online before the hour was up. By morning, it was gone. The empty space it left behind looked cleaner than he expected. Later, he went room to room, collecting traces of her clothes, jewelry, old perfume bottles, pictures, not in anger, but in order, a quiet reclaiming of space. The house felt different now. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was honest. He boxed everything carefully, sealing the top with tape. Then, standing in the doorway, he whispered, "Goodbye. Claire, wherever you're finding yourself, stay there." Days passed. He started running again in the mornings. The same route he'd taken when they first moved in. Back then, he used to think of her smile waiting at the door when he returned. Now, he thought of nothing at all. Just the sound of his breathing and the feel of the cold air cleansing his lungs. Each mile stripped away another layer of old emotion until what remained was simple, solid, and silent. Peace didn't come as a flood. It arrived slowly, like a tide reclaiming the shore one wave at a time. He came home one evening, brewed a pot of coffee, and sat at the table, the same table where she'd left that note. It was gone now, but the memory remained. Only this time, it didn't hurt. It just existed, like a scar you no longer hide. He looked around. The house was spotless, everything in its place, every corner reclaimed. No echoes of her voice, no scent of her perfume, no sign she'd ever lived there at all. He smiled faintly. The first real one in weeks, because sometimes healing doesn't look like crying. It looks like erasing her name from every place she thought she owned. It looks like silence, not sadness. Routine, not revenge. A man who stopped waiting for closure and started becoming it. And for the first time since she left, Daniel realized something powerful. The house hadn't changed. He had. The same rooms that once felt like a tomb now felt like the beginning of a life rebuilt brick by brick, heartbeat by heartbeat, in quiet defiance of everything she thought she destroyed. He didn't need her apology anymore. He didn't need her explanation. He just needed the truth. And he already had it. The truth was this: some endings don't happen when people walk out. They happen the moment you stop chasing the ones who do. A month passed, long enough for silence to become a habit, long enough for Daniel to forget what her footsteps sounded like. He'd stopped checking his phone, stopped wondering if she'd ever come back. He didn't need answers anymore, just peace. And for the first time in years, he had it. The mornings were cleaner now, the air sharp, the house orderly. Every routine felt like a small victory. He woke early, ran his miles, brewed coffee, and left for work without glancing at the empty side of the bed. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was clarity. Then, one quiet afternoon, peace ended with the sound of tires on gravel. He didn't move at first. The engine idled. Then came the slam of a car door, footsteps up the walk, and the metallic turn of a key that no longer belonged to her. The door opened, and there she was, Claire, tanned from some other climate, hair styled, skin glowing with the kind of confidence only distance can create. Her perfume hit first, the same one she used to wear on anniversaries. Too strong now. Too deliberate. She stepped inside like she'd never left. Her suitcase gleamed in the light, the wheels whispering across the floor. Her eyes swept over the clean counters, the folded laundry, the quiet order of a home she didn't recognize anymore. Then she smiled, faint, smug, like a woman returning to what she still believed was hers. "Well," she said softly, "you should be grateful I came back." Daniel didn't speak right away. He just looked at her. Not with anger. Not with longing. Just the detached calm of a man who'd already finished this conversation 100 times in his head. When he finally answered, his voice was steady. "I am," he said, "grateful for clarity. Because this isn't your home anymore." The words landed with surgical precision. Not shouted. Not emotional, just final. Her smile wavered. Disbelief flickering in her eyes. "Excuse me." Daniel walked past her. Calm as ever. On the counter sat a large envelope. He picked it up, placed it in her hands, and stepped back. She looked down, frowning. "What's this?" "Yours," he said. Her eyes scanned the first page, then froze. The word divorce stared back at her in black ink. She flipped through the papers, her confidence cracking like thin glass. "You filed without me." Daniel's reply was quiet, almost gentle. "You left without me." She let out a brittle laugh. "You think that scares me? You can't just erase 3 years with a signature." He didn't answer. Silence filled the space where excuses used to live. She stepped closer, her tone rising. "You'll give me half of everything." "Daniel, you know that." "Right." He finally met her eyes. "No," he said simply. "I won't." She blinked, uncertain whether it was defiance or truth. Then she saw it, the stillness in his face. The steadiness that meant there was nothing left to argue about. "You'll regret this," she hissed. Her voice trembled between anger and disbelief. "Maybe," he said. He turned away, picking up his jacket. But not tonight. For a moment, neither of them moved. Just two strangers standing in a house that used to hold their life. Then she grabbed her suitcase, her perfume trailing behind her like fading arrogance, and walked out. The door closed. Her car engine roared, then drifted down the street until it vanished into the distance. Daniel stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the last light of evening spill across the rooftops. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the silence of loss this time. It was freedom, pure and unshakable. She hadn't just walked out of his life again. This time, he'd opened the door for her, and as night settled over Denver, Daniel Rhodes finally exhaled the sound of a man who'd chosen peace over pain, and clarity over chaos. The Denver courthouse smelled like rain and polished wood. For Daniel, it didn't feel like a place of punishment, only completion. The final page of a story he hadn't written, but one he was ready to end. He stood in the hallway outside courtroom 3. People passed in quiet rhythm, clerks, lawyers, lives being sorted into folders. Everyone carried something invisible. For him, it was peace disguised as exhaustion. When the bailiff finally called his name, Daniel stepped inside. The room was half-lit, the air dry, the walls lined with echoes of other endings. Across the aisle, Claire sat with her attorney. Her hair was perfect. Her smile was rehearsed. If not for the tension in her hands, she could have passed for calm. But Daniel had learned long ago performance always cracks under truth. The judge entered. Formalities passed like slow thunder. Then came the question that would close everything. "Mr. Rhodes, your petition cites infidelity as the cause of dissolution. Is that correct?" "Your Honor." Evan Porter rose, his voice even and respectful. "Your Honor, the petitioner has provided photographic and financial evidence confirming the respondent's extramarital relationship with an individual named Brandon Cole. All documentation has been filed with the clerk's office." He handed over a folder, the same one Daniel had once held with shaking hands. Now it was just paper. New emotion. No sting. No surprise. The judge flipped through the photos slowly. Each one, a silent confession. Claire laughing under California sunlight, her hand on another man's shoulder. Her body turned toward someone who wasn't her husband. The judge looked up. Mrs. Rhodes, do you dispute this evidence? Claire hesitated. Her voice caught before she spoke. He was a friend. I just needed time away to think. Evan's voice cut through. Calm as stone. With overnight accommodations booked for 2 under her maiden name. A faint murmur rippled through the room, then faded back into the steady hum of truth doing its work. The judge closed the folder. Her tone measured. The court finds sufficient evidence of infidelity under the terms of the prenuptial agreement signed April 21st. 3 years ago. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. Therefore, Mrs. Rhodes forfeits all claims to shared property or assets. Divorce is granted effective immediately. The gavel fell once sharp. Final. Echoing longer than it should have. And just like that, the story ended the only way truth ever does, quietly. Claire's lawyer began gathering papers. She didn't move. Her eyes stayed on the desk. Unfocused. As if replaying every decision that led her here. Daniel stood. He buttoned his jacket. Not out of pride, but out of closure. He turned toward the door, ready to step back into the life waiting outside. Then her voice stopped him. Soft. Broken, the kind of sound that doesn't ask for forgiveness. Just one last chance to be heard. Daniel. He turned slightly. She was standing now. Eyes wet. Hands trembling. I thought you'd wait for me. He looked at her for a long moment, not with anger, but with the quiet understanding of a man who'd already mourned what she was asking for. I did, he said, until I remembered who I was. Silence followed, heavy. Clean. Absolute. The kind that doesn't demand applause or tears. Only understanding. As he walked out, the judge's words, the gavel's echo, and her trembling breath blended into one truth. The truth doesn't shout. It just waits until silence does the talking. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air was cold, but clear. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel Rhodes walked into the daylight. Not as a man who'd lost a marriage, but as one who'd reclaimed himself. The drive home felt different this time. The same streets. The same skyline, but cleaner somehow. Sharper. Like the city had washed itself overnight. Daniel rolled down the window, letting the cold air cut through the quiet. He passed familiar corners. Old restaurants. Places that used to mean something. Now they were just landmarks of a life that no longer fit. For the first time in months, there was no anger behind his chest. No noise. Just stillness. The kind that comes when a man stops explaining himself to people who were never listening. When he pulled into the driveway, the porch light flickered softly. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. It felt like his. Inside, the air carried a faint scent of coffee and rain. He moved through the rooms slowly, quietly, no ghosts. No tension. No trace of her perfume hiding in the walls. Every corner looked new. Though nothing had changed, he brewed coffee. Not because he needed it, but because it reminded him of how simple peace could be. The mug felt warm in his hands. The kind of warmth that doesn't depend on anyone else. He stood by the window, watching the quiet drizzle return. The rain no longer whispered of loss, it sounded like renewal. Like the sky itself had decided to start over. And in that stillness, Daniel realized something. Some endings don't break you. They rebuild you quieter. Stronger. Untouchably. Because pain, when handled right, becomes discipline. Silence, when embraced, becomes power. And walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom learned the hard way. He took a slow sip, the city lights glowing through the mist, and smiled, not out of victory, but understanding. It was never about getting even. It was about getting free. Men. If the person you loved vanished and came back like nothing happened, would you take her back? Or let silence speak for you? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more true-to-life stories about loyalty, clarity, and strength, because sometimes silence says everything.